Okay, now it's time for how to learning. How to learning. What gives me the credentials to tell another person how they should learn? Because it seems like quite a pompous thing to think that I know. But you know what? I think it's pretty simple, but no one pays attention, so they don't realize how it works. If you pay attention, you'll realize all the things I'm going to say that scientists have been trying to figure out forever, but I knew like 7 years ago because I paid attention to my own mind. I don't need a fucking scientist to tell me what's happening in my own mind. All you need to do is pay attention to your own mind, and then you find out. And what did I find out? It starts with memory. Just like in my meditation video, you need to realize, first of all, that, at least in my opinion, all memory is the same. It's all the same process. It doesn't matter if you're learning piano, it doesn't matter if you're learning something conceptual, like some science, physics shit. Doesn't matter if you're doing a math problem, doesn't matter if you're doing rote memorization of words. All of it is one input leading to a certain output. It's all the fucking same. Now, learning a concept might involve many more abstractions at once, and so it's not as easy to systematize that, but the essential understanding is that when you memorize something, that when you quote unquote learn something, you are essentially telling your mind, in the future, when this context appears again, have this output arise in the future. That's the essential thing. The other, and we'll get back to that. The other essential thing is you need to understand that there is no one learning. That learning is happening, but there is no one learning. No, and you realize that. I'm not saying non-self, whatever. You can believe whatever you want about that. I'm saying that if you pay attention while you're learning, you will realize that you are not the one learning. You're not learning. It's that it is happening, but you are not controlling. It's hard to explain. But I think it is really important to understand that. I'll be more specific. When I was learning piano, if you saw my piano video, I described at the beginning of that. Someone bet me that I couldn't learn Clair de Lune in a month, having never played piano before, and I did, in my opinion. The pianist that challenged me doesn't think I did it because I didn't do the pedals. So whatever. But when I was learning piano, and you're doing a sequence of keys or something, and you pay attention to that process. What happens when I do the sequence of keys and I quote unquote learned it? What happened? And if you see, it's clear that, how can I put this? It's clear that learning is essentially a mutation. It's like an accident. And that you are not, because it has to be almost. Because if it wasn't a mutation, then you would just be able to do it. Right? Doesn't that make sense? Where if I can just do this, I could just do the sequence of keys. If I could already do that, then I wouldn't need to learn. But I can't do it. So I need to cause it to happen somehow. And the first time it happens is an accident. Isn't that crazy? But it really makes sense to think about it that way. That You are not learning. That you, again, I don't know about the non-self shit, but in this context, I'm going to phrase it this way. You are the one controlling the context around the environment of learning. I just realized that I never said what the credentials were. The credentials are that I paid. Oh, I did say it. Anyway, you are not the one learning. You are controlling the context around the learning and constraining it and isolating it so that that mutation is the most likely to increase the chance of that mutation happening as much as possible. Okay? And that really makes sense. And I've never heard anybody talk about this way. So I'm taking all the credit. If you pay attention, that really makes sense. And it matters that you think about it that way, in my opinion, because if you think you're learning and you have this misperception of the process of like how me getting the sequence of the keys works, if you don't understand that process, it's not optimal. But because during the piano challenge, I know that I'm not controlling this process, that I am facilitating it, I can go into that strategy maximally and facilitate it maximally, optimally. Okay? So what does that mean, though? It means that you need to, how do you constrain the environment? Like, what the fuck am I talking about? Well, if you don't, what if you just have the whole song, Clair de Lune? You've never played piano before, you have the whole fucking song in front of you, Clair de Lune, what do? Well, you can't just go through all the notes. Like, let's say you know how to read sheet music, just for the sake of example. But you can't sight read, which means you can read the notes, but it takes you some time to find where it is on the piano and click it. For sake of example, let's say that's the situation. If you just start playing, if you just try to play the song start to finish over and over again, you'll never get it, right? Or it'll take you a super long time, right? Because you're not constraining it at all. And the optimal way of constraining it has to do with another one of the essential things is that your mind, it takes, when a new thing comes along, okay, let's say a name. In the meditation video, I used the example name Chaturangsu. Let's say you meet a person named Chaturangsu, okay? Say, hey, Chaturangsu, I'm Mikey. If you only repeated it once, would you remember their name? Okay, it's a bad example because it's an extravagant name, but you get the point. Usually when you meet somebody and you learn their name, you kind of don't remember it. So you need to repeat it to yourself. But what happens if you repeat it to yourself right then and there, and a person says, hey, my name is Bob, and you go, Bob, 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 and then that's it. You're probably not going to remember it for significantly longer. So then what do you need to do? You need to wait. So you say, hey, this person's name is Bob, and then like a minute later, you need to remind yourself, this person's name is Bob. And that's inherently different. And so that's the other thing you'll realize if you pay attention, is that the mind needs some time. Okay? If you just keep hammering away at the same thing, it will still work. It's just not optimal. And so for the sake of another example, let's say you're trying to memorize a new word in Chinese. You're trying to memorize 电脑, computer, 电脑. I'm pronouncing that poorly, I'm sorry. Let's say you're trying to remember that. I just said it twice. Maybe you remember it right now. And maybe if you keep repeating it for the next minute, you'll remember it for a day or something. But if you just wait like a minute and then repeat it, then the amount of time you wait increases. The amount of time you can wait increases. And then maybe you can wait 2 minutes. And then maybe you can wait an hour. And then maybe you could wait 6 hours. And then maybe you could wait several days. I'm not doing such a good job of explaining this, but the essential observation here is that if you bring to mind something right before you were going to forget it, it's the connection becomes so much stronger. And then you don't have to just hammer away at the same thing over and over again, because and that frees you up during that waiting time to go do other things. And so it's maximally efficient. So while you can just keep hammering away at the same thing over and over again, I'm sure we all know that feeling where we keep doing something over and over and over again, and we feel like we're plateauing, and it just feels it gets more and more frustrating. That's essentially the thing here, is like this allows you, if you realize that if you just take a breaks between stuff, you can go free that time up to do something else, and you won't get frustrated by continuously going on the same thing. But so what is the sorry, I hate doing this shit in one take. The observation is that if you remember something right before you were going to forget it, that connection becomes much stronger. But then that time, the length of time you have to wait until the next time you're going to forget it, increases by a lot. So let's say I hear the person's name, Chaturangsu. I wait a minute. Let's say I was going to forget in 1 minute. I remember their name, Chaturangsu. I bring it to mind right before I was going to forget it. Okay? Then now that length of time that I have to wait isn't a minute anymore. It's probably actually like 30 minutes, or it could be even way longer than that. And then, like, let's say it's 30 minutes. You wait 30 minutes, at minute 29, you bring to mind their name, boom. Now that length of time is probably a day or even more, depending on you, and depending on how active your mind is. Like, it might take you like 8 times to memorize something, or if you're memorizing stuff all the time, that amount of times might drop down to like 4 times or something. Like, maybe scientists would disagree with that, but this was my experience when I was learning like 50 Chinese words a day, like 7 years ago, when I thought of all these things, and this method was, I noticed that my mind was like speeding up like a lot. Like, after 2 weeks, I was going way faster than the initial 2 weeks. So I think everyone can do this sort of thing. But anyways, so though I gave like 3 essential observations. 1, it's not you learning. You're constraining the environment. 2, they have these gaps. If you introduce fractal gaps, that is the most efficient. And I forget the 3rd one, so fuck it. But how do we actually apply any of this? I just talked about 14 minutes of theory. How do we apply this to our lives? Okay. This is sort of the hard part to explain, because it changes for everything. And we live in a time where a lot of the things that we do are virtualized, are virtual. So we can try over and over on many things now, like video games, learning words, piano, like a lot of these things are really easy to try over and over again. But something like skateboarding, you have to change the approach, because you can't just fly into it with no consequences. You either have to be more careful, or if you're not careful, you hurt something, and then you have to wait longer before you can try again. With surfing, there is no consistent environment for you to learn surfing. You just can't. With video games like League of Legends, the people who made League have not made a consistent environment, like the practice tool. I don't want to talk about video games, never mind. Race car driving, that's expensive. You can't just do willy-nilly with the car. So there are all these things, but you can still take these simple things like I'm gonna establish the process for learning the like using flashcards essentially and learning piano that I did, and you can apply those to the other things, and you can apply the mindset of I'm going to, for this specific thing, before I actually try, I'm going to try to figure out what is the most optimal way to do it instead of just going into it. So how did I learn Chinese? Let's start with that. So I had a bunch of words. We'll just, how did I learn Chinese words? Instead of saying, how did I learn Chinese? How did I learn 50 words a day? And I was learning 50 words a day. I was learning how to write them in Chinese. I was learning the pronunciation and the pinyin and everything. And I was learning what it sounded like every which way. Like you would show me the pinyin, like you would show me the pinyin for a word, like in Chinese, ren is person, and that's REN with like a tick on the E going up. That's the pinyin. If you showed me the pinyin, I could write the word, I could say it. Like I listened to audio, I could, so you're practicing every which way. And I was doing 50 of those a day. And so how did that happen? Well, the first day I just like haphazardly just wrote a bunch of words on this whiteboard, and I was like, immediately like, this is not going to work. Like I need a system. And then the system I developed was based off of the observation of these gaps, where if you learn a word, you don't want to just keep repeating it because that doesn't make sense. You want to bring it to mind when you're about to forget it. So what is the optimal way to do that? The optimal way I found for me was in essentially groups of 5, where you take I would take flashcards of 5 words, okay? And I would, in the testing application, I would have it continuously repeat the cards that I got wrong. So I would start with 5 new cards, and obviously I would get them all wrong at first. So it would show me one card that I've never seen this word before. Wrong, 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 wrong. So I get all 5 wrong at first, but I just see them. And there's discomfort in that. And that's probably the 4th big idea, is that this process is very uncomfortable, but as long as you face that discomfort, it will happen. But you need to face it. And like every time, even when I was learning 50 words in 4 hours, I was still uncomfortable, but I face it every time. So the first 5, you'll all get wrong. And you try to be like, okay, this word, like you try in your mind, you're like, if it says 电脑, you're like, okay, 电脑, computer, and you go to the next one. But you don't ruminate on it. Don't like sit there and just on the one flashcard that you've never seen before and go, 电脑, computer, 电脑, computer, and don't just sit there for like a whole minute doing that one. Just say it in your head, like, just have the intention of memorizing it. That's all you need, is I intend to memorize 电脑, computer. Just that intention is enough. But then you move on after like a few seconds. Don't ruminate on it, as I've already said multiple times. Then you move on to the next one. I'll do the same thing. You go through these 5. The first time you see these new words that you've never seen before, it should maybe take like 20 seconds, okay, or less. But now, remember I said those gap thing. If there's a gap, that your mind needs time, and if you remember it right before blah, blah, blah. So remember, it was 20 seconds ago that we saw the word 电脑, that we saw computer. That was like 20 seconds ago or less. So now when we see it, we are going to, there's like, let's say there's a 40% chance we remember it, or 30% chance we remember it. That's fine. Let's say we don't remember 电脑. We click wrong, got it wrong again. And again, the flashcard app, we're assuming that it shows you the cards that you got wrong continuously until you say that you've gotten every single one correct. Okay? So you got that one wrong. Then the next one comes up. What's the word? What's the word in Chinese? 中文. That's how you say Chinese in Chinese. 中文. Okay, let's say the second word was 中文. Again, you just saw this 20 seconds ago. And like, let's say there's a 30% chance that you remember it. But you see it now. Boom. And you remember it. You see the word and you're like, oh, that's 中文. And you check and it's like, oh, I got it correct. Boom. Correct. And then let's say you go through them. And then let's say you get 2 of them right and then 3 of them wrong. Now the flashcard application is showing you the 3 that you got wrong. So, and it works out because the 2 you just got right, remember I said the first time to remember them was maybe 10 or 20 seconds. That was the first gap. Now the new gap is longer. And that new longer gap is accommodated by the fact that you have to remember these 3 words. So you're going through these again, and maybe you get one wrong, and then maybe you get the other 2 right. And then now there's 1 left, and then maybe you get that one right. And then you start the test over immediately. Because, again, things are sensitive at this early stage where we're dealing with seconds and minutes versus like hours and days, okay? We want to hit it at the and you can tune it to who you are. Maybe you're more of a 4-word kind of person. Maybe you're a 7-word kind of person. You can tune it but I like 5, nice good number. And I probably wouldn't go any more than 5, but you do you. But also going to less than 5 is bad. Because things approach 1, right? Because 5 is not far from 1. But if you're just doing 1, we're back at that problem where I said, like, you don't just want to repeat it. You want a gap. And so the fact that there's 5 allows for a good gap. So then, I think I'm doing a horrible job at explaining this. Then you start over immediately because remember there was a gap. So we've done all the we've gotten all of them correct once. Okay, we gone through. We went wrong, right, wrong, right, and then now there's like a few left. Boom, and then you got all them right once. The test is over now. Once you get every single one of them right once, the test is over. Then you start again immediately because again, it's been like however many seconds since you saw those other ones. Since you saw the cards that you got right. It's been like probably 40 seconds or a minute since then. And it's about time to remember them because you're about to forget them. So, and you can test it out. In like 5 minutes, you'll probably forget them. So now is the time. Start a new test immediately and do the same thing again. The same exact process, except you're gonna get 1 or 2 right off the bat, or maybe you'll even get 5 right off the bat. I'm just trying not to be too presumptuous with how I say this because some people might feel bad that they're not doing it quickly or whatever, and I don't remember exactly how long each of these things take, so I don't want to give a false impression that I'm doing it super faster or super slow or anything like that. So whichever amount you get, just go through it one more time. And then now you just wait. Wait like a minute, okay? Just wait a minute. And then do it again. And then this time, you might see that surprisingly, you just might get all 5 correct. Okay? And then now you wait 5 minutes, let's say. After you wait 5 minutes, now, hour, 2 hours. At this point, it's getting to the point where it doesn't even really fucking matter anymore. You just need 3 or 4 of these, and then the time starts getting pretty long, where it probably doesn't even matter. Like, you can read it, wake up, look at the flashcards, and you might get most of them right, and then that's the reminder you need. But here's the thing. But I said there needs to be a gap, like you need to wait. But the thing about that is, you can do anything you want in that gap. So in that gap, you could be studying other cards. Isn't that crazy? So I would do the first 2 rounds right away. Like a new set of 5. A new set of 5 cards I've never seen before. I would go do 2 tests with them. And then in that gap, I would do 2 tests with a new set of 5. And then I'd go back to the old set of 5 and do that. And then go back to the new set of 5 and do that. And then go back to a new set of 5. Now we're on the 3rd set. And you keep doing this in this like fractal manner. Beep, 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 beep. And then, but also you're combining groups. Eventually, pretty early on, you want to combine the groups as early as you possibly can. So after you do like 2 tests, after you are able to do a test where you get every single one right on your first try, that is the point where you want to combine the test with another test that you also got right on your first try. So now you're doing a test of 10, okay? And then if you get all that, then you merge 2 groups of 10, and you do 20, and then eventually you get to the point where you get to 50 words. You merged all the groups. You're at 50 words, and then you go through all of them. And that took me, I think I remember it took me 4 hours when I was at like the height of, and doing it every which way of like, I was writing the word. If I didn't have to write the word, it probably would have taken faster, but writing the word, you know, hearing, reading, seeing the Chinese characters, seeing the pinyin, seeing the English word, hearing, writing, all 5 of those interconnected. Okay? So that took about 4 hours. So that's the method. And that was the other one. The other core observation is that all memory is just, it's literally just your mind takes a context, abstracts it, and says, okay, when this input happens, do this output. Okay? So that flashcard example, it might seem like it's very specific to flashcards, and maybe the process is specific, but the ideas behind it are not specific to the flashcards. The ideas behind it are applicable to everything. So piano. How did I do piano? I did it in a very similar manner. But so going back to what I was talking about, constraining the environment, I constrained the environment to 5 flashcards for that previous example. I'm isolating my mind to make, and this is going back to what I was saying, to make the likelihood of a favorable mutation happening as likely as possible. And that was with 5 flashcards for me. Okay? But it also can't be too easy, as I mentioned. If it's just 1 flashcard, it's kind of this weird situation. Okay? So with piano, what was the constraining of the environment? The constraining was I would only do 1 hand, 1 measure at a time. And I would just try to, and I would, and again, it's also thinking of processes specific for piano, for the task you're doing. So I can't remember, I'm assuming my friend Andrew, the professional pianist who I had the bet with, I'm assuming he gave me some of these ideas, but I can't really remember. So he probably shares some credit in some of this. That, you know, I would set a BPM counter for pretty slow. Okay? Slow enough to where I could barely do it. That's the recurring theme here, is you want to be able to just barely accomplish something or just barely not accomplish it. Okay? You don't want to do something so easy. You always want to be, if you want to learn at the fastest speed possible, you always want to be right where it's like just barely doable for you. So I would set the BPM to something slow, and then try to hit the sequence of keys for just 1 measure, very short, like a sequence of 5 keys or something. Try to hit it on beat, you know, and you know, do it until I get it right once, and then wait, and then I would do it again until I get it right once again, and then wait, and then do it again, and then, you know, at some point we're increasing the BPM and whatnot. do it again until I get it right. I can get it right like 3 times in a row. Then wait. Then do it until I can get it 5 times in a row, and increasing the BPM and everything. So like you kind of see what I'm saying is like very specifically tuning the environment. You're not learning. You're controlling the environment around the learning as much as possible to force your mind to pop up with a mutation that you want to happen. Okay? And it's really clear. It was really clear to me with piano, this idea of memory and learning being of like favorable mutations, where like I would try to hit it and it wouldn't happen, and then randomly one time, it would happen. It would just like, and then what can you attribute that to if not just a random accident mutation? You can't attribute it to you, because if you did attribute it to you, you would have been able to do it already. Am I wrong? Like, if you can't do something and you're taking your mind and you're saying intention, hey, do this, and you can't do it, and then eventually one time you do it, what can you attribute that to other than like causality and mutations? Like, and if you watch it happen too, if you watch the learning take place, there is no sense in this process that I am doing this. You know what I mean? Like I have the sense that I'm controlling this, the context around this, but there is no sense that I am actually doing that. I am that I am responsible for that mutation, that for that quote unquote accident of hitting the notes correctly. So that's the thing. Now, there's all sorts of variables that I don't know what are the optimal. Like, what I wanted to do at one point was figure out, like, what is the optimal, like, is there a way to get for a specific person, like, the most optimal sequence for them? Like, we have, but each one has different variables. So, like, with the piano, you know, there's the BPM, there's doing it with your hand, how many successes in a row, how long to wait between each success, how many tries would be optimal. And I think, I don't know this one for sure, but I think one of the optimal things is minimizing failures. It needs to be in a certain range of failure and success. If you're doing too many failures, like let's say the measure you're working on is too hard or the BPM is too high, and so now for to get it on the first try, to get one correct sequence, you had to go through like 10 failures first to get the correct sequence. I think that's bad. I don't know what the optimal ratio is, but I think in general, maybe 50%, maybe for that first one. But then the question is what's the ratio for the second one? You know, and so I don't know the answer to all these questions. I don't know what's optimal. I just know kind of also intuitively with me, like, you know, you can kind of, if the very key thing here, I said there's 4 key things, but the foundational thing is, if you just fucking pay attention, just be self-aware when this process is happening. Fuck the YouTube tutorials. Fuck like all that shit where you're depending on someone else. Depend on yourself. Have self-awareness as this process is happening, and also just be trying to refine it. Refine your understanding of the process happening within you, and pay attention to it, and refine the process itself, and see the outcome of your new process. That's how you learn quickly, is through this self-awareness. The self-awareness, it refined, as long as it's like a fire, and as long as it's going, it's just refining everything. Okay? That's the very key thing. So I don't know the answer. How many failures is optimal? Like, if I'm trying to do the piano thing, 10 failures is too much, because you also get frustrated. If you're doing too many failures, you get frustrated. So you want it to be at this level, at this perfect boundary where it feels challenging but not frustrating, and it also doesn't feel easy. So I think that's the optimal, because ultimately your mind knows when a failure happens, just based off of these like very subtle intentions of like you know, even though you're not saying out loud like, no, that was a failure. Mind, please do it better next time. Even though you're not saying that, your mind knows because of your intentions. I think. So your mind knows when a failure happens. So a failure is still beneficial to you because your mind knows to try to not do that next time, right? But I think a success is better, or rather, a success or failure on this boundary of just being able to do it is the best. So that's also why I picked 5 flashcards. That's how I picked the BPM for learning piano and lowering it and doing it with my hand, like doing it with my hand and introducing the other hand. Once it starts feeling easy, you need to introduce a new, that's the key. Once it starts feeling easy, somewhat easy, you need to introduce a new element to it. You need to change one of the variables to make it harder, to slowly refine the environment of the learning towards the goal, which is, yeah. And that might not be a converging. It might be like a just pushing, a narrowing, and then pushing in. But you might come from multiple angles of narrow. I don't know. I probably shouldn't have tried using an analogy on that. I just fucked it up. But that's the thing, is you are narrowing this field in your mind as much as possible to create the highest chance of a mutation happening, and you're moving that towards your end goal of a specific mutation. I want to play this exactly at this part. So learning has a lot to do with devising a method for that. And so with skateboarding, I wanted to learn skateboarding quickly. I would do a very similar thing. And this is going back to what I was saying just now, is that the optimal is like when it's not too easy and it's not too hard. Like it's just perfectly challenging. You want to always be in that space of perfectly challenging. And I was saying that's why I picked 5 flashcards, because it's challenging, and then you slowly move on and expand the group to be more challenging and yeah. But with skateboarding, I wanted to do frontside turns, which is like where, you go up to a ramp and then you lift up your board and turn and then come back down. And then front side is where your front is facing the wall, if I remember correctly. So I already knew how to do backside turns. I could go up to a ramp and then turn the board around and then come back down. But I couldn't do backside turns. So how do you do, what do you do? Like, just think in your mind. What would you do? Well, it seems pretty natural that you would start on on an easy ramp, that you would go to a ramp that's very low incline and do it there. So I would just do it there. Again, not too easy, but easy enough. But maybe the first time it can be too easy, but don't use it as a crutch. You need to move on. And that's why I said you need to address that feeling of discomfort, because that is the key here, is that you are intentionally being uncomfortable. You're intentionally putting yourself in this space of discomfort constantly when you're learning. That space between too challenging and too easy, that space is uncomfortable, okay? And you want to be there. If you're uncomfortable, you're probably in the right spot, okay? So you don't want to, it's easy to just once you get something, it's easy to just kind of get addicted to the fact that you can do it now and just keep sticking with, no, move on. Or however you want to live your life. If you do want to relish in whatever you were doing, that's fine. But this video is how to learning. This video is about learning as fast as possible. So maybe on a ramp that's way too easy, just to make sure I'm not going to kill myself, I do, and I turn around, and yeah, I notice, okay, this isn't too dangerous. Then I go to a slightly harder ramp, and then it was too hard. So I was like, okay, no, I need an easier ramp. Because you might think that, no, just do it on this ramp. But it's like, no. if I do it on this, the time it takes for me to go around the park, look for another ramp that's going to be better, and do it at that ramp, and then come back to this one is going to be shorter than the amount of time it takes for me to learn only on this ramp. And you can refute that, but it depends on the situation. But in most situations, this is going to be optimal. Because also with skateboarding, as I was mentioning earlier, you don't want to hurt yourself. Because if you fall and you get bruised and you keep falling on the same spot over and over and over again, you're getting bruised every day in the same spot. You're like, and now you have to leave because if you hit that spot again, you're going to fucking scream. So it makes sense to not push it too hard with something like skateboarding. So again, we're talking about this meta-analysis of the process that we're engaging in. So I was like, okay, that was a conscious distinction in my mind of let's go look for another ramp. Found another ramp, did front side, took a 1 minute break, and then did front side, do the front side again, and then I got it a few times. Well, like it felt right, and then I would go take like a 5 minute break, and then I would do it and then I would move to a harder ramp, and I do a certain amount of successes, and then after a certain amount of successes, I would and I'm also going higher each time, tuning the variables slowly. In this fractal pattern of leaving gaps, the most important part is the gap, is the break, is taking a break. Now, if you can stomach doing other things in the break, like with the flashcards, that's easy to stomach because it's all right here on your phone, whatever, and it's not taxing at all. Like you have that discomfort feeling of being in that range, but it's pretty easy. But versus skateboarding, it's also physically taxing, so in that situation, usually just a flat out break makes more sense, where you just take a minute break, take a 5 minute break, but you take these like pretty frequently. Like I'm putting the emphasis more on the break. And if you look at weightlifting, what is the optimal way of lifting, of strength training? You will find many, many programs that tell you to wait 2 minutes between each set. And then how long do you wait between workouts? You wait like 7 days. And why do you think that is? Has a bit to do with your muscles, but also powerlifting has to do with the central nervous system, which is your brain. In my opinion. But anyways, you do that, you do the skateboarding shit, take breaks, boom. In like 1 hour, I was doing front side turns on like a 5 foot ramp, and then there was a guy in the skate park, and I could tell he's like a little bit jealous. He's like, how you learned front side turns in like an hour? And I was like, yeah, man. Sorry. But you can too, and he could too. It's just that nobody's paying attention. And I'm not trying to say that I'm this genius and I know the right way. I'm saying that I'm paying attention, and I know what's best for me. I notice my mind, the gaps. I notice the gaps feed my mind. I noticed that I'm not the one learning, that these mutations are happening, and and that the optimal way was to constrain the environment, to isolate those variables. That's what I'm saying, is if you just need to fucking pay attention. Okay? So that's that. You take... So, yeah, so anytime you want to learn something, you can do that. I forget if there was something else I was going to say. I feel like there was. The breaks are important. I was going to say the breaks are more important than the doing of the thing. And it's not a break. It's not an emotional break. It's specifically tuned. You're specifically taking a break, not for your emotions, for your mind to be, because of the pattern I was telling you about, where if you remember something right before you're about to forget it, that's the same. It applies to skateboarding as well. You might think, well, it's front side turn, like you forget it. What does that mean? No. If you do it once successfully and then you wait a day, you're not going to be able to do it again. But if you do it once successfully and then you wait a minute, you're going to be able to do it again. You will be able to do it again. And then, so the gap is important, and it needs to be tuned to how well you have that specific context of memory defined in your mind. If it's very well defined, you don't need to practice it, you know? So the breaks are more important than the actual doing of the thing. And I know people will disagree with that, and I disagree with you. I'm right, you're wrong, I win. Okay? This took way longer than I thought, so if you paid attention that whole time, that's astonishing. I think I was talking a lot, and I don't think that this is going to be very easy to listen to, so if you did listen to that whole thing, that's crazy. I feel like I came across a little bit pompous in this video, and I guess I want to reiterate, I don't think I'm better than anybody. I don't think I learn faster necessarily than anybody. I think the difference with me, assuming there is a difference, I think there's a difference, you know, but obviously this is my own life. So, but I'm saying that when there is a difference, the difference is the self-awareness that I'm paying attention to how this is happening and I'm constantly revising it. Okay. And that's also somewhat of, I should also touch on that maybe you're not built that way. Maybe you're not a psychopath. You know, I have this thing where if I'm doing something, I'm paying attention to how that thing is happening in me and externally, and I'm always thinking, how can I make this better, faster? And that's what I'm coding too. I'm always thinking, how can I revise this process of me typing? How can I make that faster? How can I make the code itself better? How, like, it's a curse almost, where like I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel restful ever. I just feel I'm in that constant state. So you don't have to be in that state. I'm not advertising it as a beneficial thing. But sometimes, you know, when I'm at the skate park and a kid is like, how long have you been skating? And I'm like, I've been skating a month. And he's like, you've only been skating a month? And, you know, I feel that people want to learn faster, but they don't know how. So this is how I did it. I'm not doing well for my case here. I'm not trying, again, I think anybody can do it. I just think the difference was that I am paying attention and that a lot of people are not. So, you know, when I say I learned 50 flashcards in 4 hours, I'm not trying to brag. I'm saying I think almost anybody can do that too. You just have to be very intentional. And I'm sure you could get that even faster. Like, I'm confident that other people, you know, if you devise a process fast enough, maybe you could even get it down to 2 hours, you know? But the thing is, most people don't want to do that. Most people want to just chill, enjoy the thing they're doing, you know, dabble, dip their toe in, slowly, boom, do that, blah, blah, blah. I don't like doing that. I have a problem. I need to run in, dive in, and just swim as fast as I can, because that's who I am. Okay? So maybe when I say, you know, pay attention to yourself, pay attention to yourself learning, see what happens, notice it. I can say that. I could tell you to have a certain mindset, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. This is the way I was born. Just always paying attention to specific types of things. This just happens to be what I pay attention to. But maybe you're not that way. Maybe you want to be that. Maybe you can be. And maybe I want to be the way you are. Maybe I don't like being a psycho, you know? So, but what I'm saying is, maybe I'm not saying that this is a good way to be. I'm just saying that this is the way I was. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy for someone who doesn't have this temperament to be this way. So I'm this way. I was born with this temperament. Maybe you have the opposite temperament, and it's going to be very hard for you to start analyzing every little thing you do and trying to optimize it at every step of the way. Maybe that's just not you, you know? So you can try, but when I say maybe it's just not you, I'm saying maybe it won't be pleasurable for you. Maybe it won't make you happy. So that's the thing, is you need to weigh that. Like, don't just take unsolicited advice on the internet and think, oh, I should be X way or be Y way. You know, there's like dating gurus, whatever, online, and I watched some of them for a little while I was trying to date, and eventually, after some amount of time, I just realized, wait a minute, I'm not like these guys. I'm not this macho guy who just fuck girls and, have casual dates and shit. I'm just not that. And not that I can't be that. I can try to force myself to be that, but I'm not. And I don't want to, is what I'm saying. It won't make me happy to be that way. I can pursue that and try to prove to myself that I can do whatever it is these pickup artists are doing, but I won't like it because I am so different from that. And so maybe it's the same for you with this, or maybe it's not. But don't take mindsets from the internet and think you need to be that. You need to think what makes you happy and hone that, I think. That's my opinion. So, I feel like I was going to say one more thing. Again. It was going to be on the topic, on that topic just now of not wanting to... Yeah, like I am not like the pickup artists. Yeah, whatever. That's the end of the video. It was very all over the place, but hopefully, the thing is, I'm not gonna fucking write a document and write a whole script for a video and read the script. I don't have time for that. I don't have the energy for that. It's never gonna happen. So this is what you get. You get this haphazard video of me being probably a little bit pompous sometimes, and I'm sorry. I believe that everyone holds this capability as well. You just have to do it. You have to observe the process. So let me know if you did do it. I'll see you. Have a good day.